Welcome to the Circuit of Success Podcast.
The Circuit of Success Podcast.
With your host,
Brett
Gilliland.
Brett Gilliland, Visionary Wealth Advisory.
The Circuit of Success Podcast. Let's start the show.
Welcome to the Circuit of Success. I'm your host, Brett Gilliland, and today I've got Laurie Singer with me. Laurie, how you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you, Brett.
Awesome. How's beautiful California today?
Actually, where I'm at, along the coast area, it's pretty cold here today.
Uh-oh. There you go. It's coming, huh? What's cold mean in California? I'm always curious what cold means to other people.
It's about 63 right now.
Okay. That's my watch says 73 here in St. Louis. It's been a little rainy the last couple of days, so we'll supposed to have a lot of rain this week, but that's all right. Well, you are Laurie Singer. You are a licensed psychotherapist and board-certified behavior analyst who heads the long-established Laurie Singer Behavioral Services in Camarillo, California. You are an author of a new book, You're Not Crazy. I can't wait to talk about that to see if I'm not crazy or not. You've had an unbelievable career. And here, I want to read this paragraph I had in my notes here that I think is pretty crazy. Is Laurie is also an accomplished endurance athlete, having made running 100-mile races nearly routine and completing 28 ultra marathons of 31 miles or longer. She's a 3-time Ironman competitor, a designation that requires swimming 2.4 miles, biking 112 miles, and running a full 26.2 marathon at one time. In 2017, you're recognized for your accomplishments as an inductee into the Ventura County Sports Hall of Fame. And over the past year, sorry to keep talking, but this is amazing. I read this. I'm like, this is insane to me. Over the past year, she's completed 3,000-mile cross-country bicycling trip, cycled hundreds of miles through Cuba, hiked the entirety of the 500-mile Camino de Santiago Trail, and most recently, as of last month actually, successfully climbed the 19,300-foot Mount Kilimanjaro in Africa. Holy smokes.
Yes.
We could just stop right there and say, enough said, she did it, do what she did, and that's the end of the podcast. Well, before we dive into all that, Laurie, can you just help me understand what has helped make you the woman that you are today?
I have been asking myself that question recently, actually, and I'm in the process of writing another book to try and figure out what keeps me going and what's taking me, because I don't think of it as that strange, some of the things that I've done, and my daughters are like, well, yeah, it's not that normal, Mom. I mean, most people don't want to climb a mountain where you might need oxygen, or, you have to take diuretics to make sure that your brain doesn't swell. It's not like, I don't know, honestly. I think it's a combination of looking back now. I think, I grew up in a really, had a traumatic childhood. So I think that's actually made me a stronger person. And also the fact that I have ADHD, which I don't really think about things. I'm just like, okay, I'll do that. Yeah. Whether it's
Sometimes
an endurance
works,
event.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, it's worked in my favor so far. I'm still alive. There have been some incidents where I've, gotten myself into some pretty scary situations, athletic wise. On that trip across the United States, 3 days before it ended, I was actually viciously attacked by 4 dogs who tried to take me off my bike, and they bit me 4 times and tried to drag me off my bike. So that was pretty scary, but I finished the ride. I know it was horrible. So there's been incidences where thank God somebody came along and wanted to take me to the hospital. But here's where, this is the part of me where I say, oh no, just take me just ahead of the dog so I can finish the ride. I'll ride my bike to the hospital. And I did. That's what I did. I had somebody else ride their bike with me, but I'm the type that just keeps going and doesn't give up.
That's amazing. That's amazing. What's that driving force behind that? Like, why? Like, you've accomplished all of these things. What is it about you that you want to keep going?
Well, it's interesting because when I did Kilimanjaro, I was apprehensive about the altitude, not about anything else, because I thought, okay, I've done some hard hikes. I've done some hard climbs. I don't do rock climbing, but I do rock scaling. I can scale rocks, but I was more concerned with the altitude because during one of my events, I had pulmonary edema where my lungs filled up with fluid and I almost died. But then I found out about the Diamox that you could use when you get into altitude. I started to research what could be done for high altitude to prevent swelling of the brain or pulmonary edema. I know it sounds strange. But I've had some amazing adventures since I found out about Diamox, and I went on a 250-mile backpacking trip. So once I got to the top of Kilimanjaro, and I felt great. I loved hiking through the night. I loved the whole adventure, just everything about it. And once I finished it, I thought, now I can do something even similar or something. Who knows what's next now that I know that I can do that. I don't know what the driving force is.
Was there 7 of them, right? Isn't the 7 big ones around the world? Or is it something like that?
I think so. You know, I don't see myself doing Everest at all. I mean, first of all, I'm going to be 65, so I have to take my age into account, right? But I think, you know, the fact that just every documentary that I've seen about Everest, it just looks, to me, it's too much. And I'm sure my family is thankful for that.
Yeah. Your daughter's like, yeah, check. We're not doing that one.
Yeah, we don't have to worry about you this time for that one. But there are other things like maybe hiking through or backpacking through the Swiss Alps or going to Nepal and doing some other hikes there. I know I can do it now. So it opens up a whole new world.
So you said you're going to be 65. So I'm assuming 64 right now, not 65 yet. So what were you doing when you were 40? Like, what was your health, your eating habits, your mindset when you were 40 years old?
Okay, let me think about 40. I think when I was 40, I was getting
ballpark it, you know.
Yeah, I think I was into ultra marathon, just starting to get into ultra. So here's what happens. I didn't, when I first started running, it's because my neighbor asked me to run. And I thought, oh, I don't know if I can run. I've never ran before. And we ran to the 7-Eleven and back, and she was done. She never wanted to run again. And I loved it. And so from that day forward, I started with the 5Ks and the 10Ks. And I was doing pretty well with the 5Ks and 10Ks. I started placing in different races around the area. And so that gave me a boost of confidence that I never had, because academically, because of my ADHD, my grades were just horrible. And I never had really any self-confidence. Running gave me confidence. Sports really gave me confidence. If it wasn't for sports, I don't know where I would be, honestly, and my family. But sports, it made me feel good. It really, my self-esteem, it really increased my self-esteem. And the local junior college asked me to come and run for them cross country. And I kept saying no. And then after the death of my son, I decided, okay, I'm going to go run cross country because I'd like to help other families. That's how this whole educational thing started. I saw how people were suffering. Families were suffering at Children's Hospital who had to deal with the fact that their kids were diagnosed with cancer, and it was just tearing families apart. But I was really scared to start college because like I said, I was such a horrible student. But I applied the same skills as training for a race to my academics, and I just took all the help I could get. I went to every tutorial center, everything there was. And believe it or not, I graduated the junior college, valedictorian, was captain of the cross-country team, and I just kept going. It was just amazing.
And this was after the passing of your son?
Yes.
And so how old were you at that point when you were going to college and running?
I didn't start going to college till I believe I was 30 years old when I went back to school. Yeah, 30 years old. And went to the
30-year-old track star.
And you know what? I started recruiting other mothers who maybe were single moms or they were just working moms, part-time jobs. And I said, hey, why don't you come and run with me on the cross-country team? And I got them to run, and they ended up getting master's degrees in social work and other things and made professional lives for themselves. So it worked out for everybody.
Wow. Do you think that the running became a therapy for you, like having to deal with that? And for those that don't know, so your son, if I may share, was diagnosed with cancer, correct? And then passed
Yes.
by the time he was 2, which is horrific.
Correct.
So I'm very sorry to hear that. Was that therapy for you to deal with that?
Oh, most definitely. My husband and I, he got diagnosed. He was never sick. And then all of a sudden he started crying and we found out that a tumor was actually crushing his spine and he went paralyzed. And within that time, we lived at Children's Hospital and he died about 2.5 months later. So he made it home for one night and then had to go back and then he died 2 weeks later. But I had always been running. In fact, when we stayed at Children's Hospital, I would bring my jump rope and I would go out on the deck where a lot of the nurses and parents were smoking cigarettes and I'd be jumping rope out there. And that was my therapy. Or I'd go running in Los Feliz where the Hollywood Hill sign is because it's very close to Children's Hospital.
Okay.
While we were there and when I went back to school and I wanted to help the families, at the same time, we wanted to help the kids that were staying there because there really wasn't that many toys for them. And at that time there was VCRs and they maybe had 3 VCRs. And my daughter would go visit, who at that time was 5, and there was really nothing for her to do. So we decided a few months after his passing that we would hold a benefit run in his name and we would give all the money to Children's Hospital, but particularly so that they would buy toys for the kids on Fort West. And this year will be our 38th annual Jacob Singer run.
Clapping for you right there.
I know. So it's bittersweet because, of course we would do anything to have our son back, but to acknowledge how many families and children that he helped because of his short life and how they got to use the Child Life program at Children's Hospital is just amazing.
That is amazing. Well, thanks for all the work you're doing. We have a charity. My wife and I have a charity for cancer as well. We started back in 2007. So need more and more people to continue to do things so we can make this deadly disease go away, hopefully. So back to this competition stuff. Like, again, I'm studying a lot about right now, like longevity and how do we live longer. And I'm 46 years old. And so my buddies and I, we joke around like there's a few more aches and pains, right? Like,
Yes.
Do you still have that at the shape you're getting in? Like, is it the food you're eating, the amount of exercise you're getting? Like, how does the body feel at 64 versus mine at 46?
I think that I'm probably a lot more stiff than I used to be, especially, at nighttime because I lay on the floor in front of the fire at night. And then I go to get up. I'm like, oh, wait, I got to use this chair to get myself back up. Or maybe my dexterity in my hands. It's like, when did this happen? I can't, I don't know when that happened. But, I just stay active. And I think it's really important. Earlier you talked about food. And I think, nutrition, physical exercise, and mental exercise. I think people if you can do those 3 things, it's not just hyper focusing on one. You have to do all 3. You have to really focus on what you eat. It's funny because I took my grandson backpacking for the first time. And I'm so excited. I have somebody to play with we have the same energy level. And he said, Grandma, what do they mean by you are what you eat? Because I don't understand what that means. And I thought that was a good question. And I said, well, you can't just eat candy all day and you have to have a variety of foods or it will catch up to you at one time. It may not be right now, but when you get older, some people who were 25, 30 are eating the same things when they're 45 and you can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
Even if your metabolism doesn't slow down, it's just not healthy. And that's what I told him. I said, it may not be on the outside, but on the inside. And I tried to explain to him what arteries were and how the body works and that, you really have to pay attention and have a variety of vegetables and fruits. And then your mind, of course, I think keeping your mind busy and always learning and being open to things.
That's great. So what's a typical day look like for you when you're, we're busy human beings, we're on the go. Like, what are you eating? What are you doing from an exercise standpoint to stay active?
So I get into these ruts where I eat the same thing for like a year. It's really weird. I mean, like, so right now I'm into every morning for breakfast, I'll have oatmeal with raisins every morning, and who knows what it's going to be next year. But
Sure.
in my planner, I always write down what exercise activity I'm going to do every day. So I still live by my planner, really. Even if I don't work that day, meaning seeing clients, I'll do something on the computer. I always write down what activity or what I'm training for. I'm always training for something. As soon as I got back from Kilimanjaro, I signed up for a Century bike ride in October. So for me, I like to have something that I'm training for. This morning, I just got back yesterday from backpacking. So I woke up this morning, took the dog on a 3-mile walk, then I swam for 45 minutes, and then I went to work. So.
And what time were you at the office?
Not too early. I didn't get here till about 9:30.
Okay.
But it was funny. I had a podcast last week that started at 7:30 in the morning, and I was busy all day long. And I thought, you know what? I have to run. I have to do something. So I got up and I was like out the door running by 5:30 in the morning, just so that I could, because that's what's important to me. It's important to fit that into my schedule.
Yeah, you value that for sure. What when you think about your business now, what the things that you're doing, and how long have you been running the Laurie Singer Behavioral Services?
It's been around for about 20 years now.
Yeah. So what would you say is the common theme that you're seeing? Hence, I'm assuming why you wrote the book, You're Not Crazy, Living with Anxiety, Obsessions, and Fetishes. Like, I'm assuming those are the 3 things that you're helping people with, hence the name of the book. Is that fair?
Yes, I think it is. A lot of anxiety. I think anxiety is a driving force behind a lot of the maladaptive behaviors that we see.
Yeah. So what are some topics or some training aids, if you will, because obviously those therapy can go on for a long, long time with people. So you can't just on a podcast here fix somebody's anxiety, but you can give them maybe some little pointers, right? Some little things to move it in a different direction. What are some things that you would help those people listening with? Well,
actually, we try to make the type of therapy that we do is solution focused. So it's not that we don't want to see you forever, but really we want you to get the tools so that you can function on your own. So when you come in to see us, you want to make a change in your life. There's somebody that's telling you, look, there's something going on. We think that you should get help with this. It's reached a point where you're affecting other family members, or we're really worried about you. So I guess the first thing would be that you need to recognize that there is a problem, right?
Yep.
And the type of behavior that we use, it's a little bit different because we combine cognitive behavioral therapy with behavioral therapy. And what that means is the cognitive behavioral therapy are the thoughts in your head that create emotions, and those emotions are exhibited through your behavior. So you could have a thought of something that makes you happy, and then and then you smile and you're pleasant to people and you get along with everybody. But what if you get a thought that is scary or sad? And so it is exhibited through your behavior in a maladaptive way, that you get angry and you throw things or you yell. So that is the cognitive part of it. How do we get you to change your thoughts? The behavioral part of it is behavioral therapy is how do you change your environment to help change your behavior, right? So let's say, for example, you wanted to eat healthier. But you're still having a lot of unhealthy foods in the house. And so what would you do? You should probably get rid of the unhealthy foods in the house, maybe put up pictures of some cute outfits or, some cute outfits that you would like to put on, or a picture of yourself the way you used to look, or set some goals for yourself. So that's the environmental part of it. Then some type of data collection for yourself would be like, start documenting or journaling. If you're trying to change a behavior of, let's say, yelling at your partner, when do you lose your temper? What is happening just before you yell? Like, are they asking you a question? Are they disturbing you? Are you in the middle of doing something? And then what does that behavior look like? Did you raise your voice? Did you use swear words? And what was a consequence of your yelling? Did your partner say, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to, I didn't mean to upset you"? Because their reaction, what is their reaction to your behavior? So to find out all these different things, otherwise you're not going to know how to change your behavior. Does that make sense? You need to
Totally,
know what
absolutely.
it is. Okay. So,
Look, here,
then
listen,
what?
I'll be
So-
very transparent. So let me interrupt if I
Okay.
can. So here's
Sure.
this morning, right? So this morning I go downstairs. I'll admit on this podcast, my dog gets a little annoying to me sometimes, and the dog got sick all over his crate. So I was pissed off this morning. And then I got to take the dog outside. And then I go outside, and my son was going to drive his brother's car, who's at college now. It needs to be driven, but it was low gas. Well, the Jeep was low gas. First world problems, right? So now I'm pissed off at my son because the cars are low gas, and then I'm afraid they're going to run out of gas going to school. Thankfully, they did not. He's not home from school yet, so hopefully he gets gas after school, right? But that's the chain reaction, right? Of assuming
Right.
the things that you're talking about. There's something in there about me that's like I was pissed at the dog, so then I got pissed at my son when it had nothing to do with it. It wasn't my son's problem. It was his brother's car. He was away from college. So thoughts about that?
So we can't always control everything. Your dog is sick. It's right before the podcast. You have all these different things going on. And what I have my clients do is I teach them to try and change the thought somehow. Like you said, it's not my dog's fault. The dog got sick. So no, what do you do? Okay. So I have something that's called the signal plan. Red means stop. So stop whatever you're doing, because you're escalating. You're just building one after the next. First it's a dog, then it's a gas. Now you're mad at your son. It's like one thing after the next, right? So you need to tell yourself, okay, wait, I need to stop. I need to make a choice right now. Yellow means make a choice, right? At a signal, red, yellow, green. Green, I'm going to take a deep breath, breathe in through my nose, breathe out, right? What is the reality of the situation? Thought versus reality, right? My thoughts are escalating this behavior, but what is the reality? It's okay. I have a podcast. She's a therapist. She's going to understand, right?
Yes.
It'll all work out. I know it will. And what if your son does run out of gas? Let him figure it out, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that's the reality of it too. I always think that, so the red, yellow, green, the signal plan, red, yellow, green, stop. You got to stop right when you're escalating. Stop. Make a choice. Are you going to make a choice to keep escalating or de-escalate the situation? Take a deep breath and think thought versus reality. What is going through your mind? You're just snowball. It's like a snowball out of control, rolling down a hill. But really, what is the reality? It's not that big a deal.
I love it. Taking some notes here. This is great. So, and I probably interrupted you with the other thoughts on anxiety
don't worry
and
about
how we're helping people.
Well, and I think that was an anxiety-provoking situation. Yeah. I mean, what you went through, you experienced anxiety, and then it's our anxiety that takes us to another level where we react to a situation that we may not normally react to, or we hold back from. There's that social anxiety where we decide that. In my book, I describe it. You go out for a cup of coffee and you're walking down the street and a car swerves and almost hits you. And even though you're on the sidewalk and you think to yourself, wow, that was close. You know what? And the next morning you go out for your coffee and say, I don't think I'm going to go to that coffee shop anymore. I'm going to go to the other one, because what if the car does swerve and hit me again? Now, the next day you think, well, the car can hit me anywhere. Best just to stay inside my apartment and not have the coffee at all. So it's when it becomes debilitating, when it stops you from doing something that you like or in engaging in other relationships that you have around you, whether it's work, school, sports, anything, then it's time to get some help.
Yeah. So how do people get in touch with you on that, or just in advice for people that debating on if they need a coach or want a coach even?
Well, even in my book, there's actually, I believe there's 6 case studies in the book. And so one is for skin picking, because that's an obsessive compulsive disorder. and then some other OCD behaviors, anxiety, and you might be able to relate to some of those. And in the back of the book is actually a toolkit. So a lot of the tools that we use here in our office, you have access to through the book. So there's visual aids, there's the data sheets, there's all that information that's in there. I was going to tell you something, and I thought that's what happens when you get older.
Like, what the hell was I getting ready to say? I can't remember.
I know. There was something I wanted to tell you, and I can't remember. Hopefully it'll come back to me.
Any other like aha moments you've had over your career of doing this and serving people that are a common theme when it comes to anxiety? Because I feel like I'm hearing it more now than I've ever heard it. And maybe it's because I talk more about my anxiety than I ever have before. So maybe that's why. But and maybe it looks like you remember what you were going to say.
I did, and I'm going to write it down. But I want to tell you this. I think that when the pandemic hit, there was an increase in anxiety. And I think it normalized people going and seeking help, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Before, I don't think people were talking about it as much, but there's so much anxiety about either getting the virus or going back to school, or parents having to have 3 kids on Zoom. One has a disability. Now they're not getting the services. I mean, there was so much involved in that. And all of that anxiety from the parent was transferred to the kids. So now the kids are displaying these maladaptive behaviors, and the parents are coming in, and we're like, wait a second. We all need to have a behavioral plan here, because it's not just the child. It's your behavior and emotions that are now transferring to theirs. So let's work together as a family.
Yeah.
And then what I wanted to tell you before, I'm so glad I remembered. Here we go, bringing sports back into therapy again. It seems like it all circles back. But I think another thing that's different, when I was in graduate school, they told me, hey, if you go to therapy, you can get 10 hours will equal 100 hours. And I'm like, oh, I'm in. I'm going to therapy. I'd never gone to therapy. And here I was going to be a therapist, but I wanted to help people. So I went to therapy and started talking about my childhood for the first time. My mom was an alcoholic. She was a drug addict. She left our family when I was 10. My son died. And I'm just listening all these things. And she looks at me and she said, Laurie, you've suffered a lot of trauma. And I said, really? Have I? And so we started examining that. Well, I started to have my first panic attacks. I was so used to shoving everything inside and not dealing with anything. Yeah. So I can relate on a level with people, many different levels, whether it's anxiety, loss, son with a disability, it's just so many different things. So she said, let's do some breathing exercises. So we did. And that was it. But I felt that people need more. So when somebody comes to my office, they take data. And then from that data, we analyze it together. You would have a different data sheet than your wife, because she's taking it from a different perspective. What does it look like to her when you're starting to get agitated? May be different from what you see. Yeah. So from that information, we write a treatment plan. And in that plan is a motivational story. And what a motivational story is, hi, my name is Brett. I might lose my temper, but it doesn't mean I'm a bad person. I'm making changes in my life and I'm going to move forward. So it's kind of a motivational story that we want you to read every day. Now, your wife or partner may have her own set of plans that she needs to do. Like she may need to remind you, hey, red, you need to stop. Yellow, make a choice. So she's kind of like part of the team, trying to help you. And then I make a schedule for you where you have to practice these things at least once a day. We want you to read your motivational story, practice your signal plan. Because I tell my clients, it's like, what if you sign up for a 10K race? You can't just sign up for a race and then show up on race day. You have to run. You have to build up your mileage. And that's like anxiety. If you're going to use these tools, Brett, you have to practice with the tools before you put them into play. We can't expect you the next time you get into a situation where you become anxious to, okay, use your tools. Right. If you haven't practiced, you're not going to use them.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that's kind of what sets us apart as well.
Well, so it's amazing when you're saying all this. I think back to my journey of 2013, 2012 going into 2013, had a panic attack in a client meeting, and it was awful, right? I'd never experienced that in my life. I had had nerves my whole life, but I had never experienced panic like that. And so I thought I was having a heart attack, right? You get the heart palpitations, shortness of breath. I'm like, oh, this sucks. This is the big one. Here it goes. And then I did all this stuff, did all these tests, went to Mayo Clinic, did an executive physical for 2.5 days, spent all this money doing it, and they're like, yeah, you're fine. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. I'm not fine, right? And then my doctor locally here told me, said some words to me and helped me understand that it was anxiety, and you start studying it. But for me, I was in a successful career, but not loving that career. Same industry I'm in to this day, but in a different role, right? Different firm, different environment. So I went and fast forwarded, basically 12 months later, changed my job, studied the heck out of anxiety, started sharing it versus hiding it. I hid it forever, right? Like my 2 or 3 closest friends knew I had anxiety. Like I used to get sick before games as a kid. My wife obviously knew, but nobody else knew. I hid it. And then instead of hiding it, I started to go public with it, right? And started telling people, and then eventually got into a podcast, started sharing on podcasts. Now here we are 7 years later, still sharing it. And for me, I'm in the best spot emotionally and mentally that I've ever been in my life. But for me, it was a change. It was living and being authentic to who I was and not caring so much about others. Let me rephrase that. Not caring what others think, right? Trying to be this perfect model of stuff. And then, but the meditation was a big deal. But again, going public and talking about it. So I don't know, is that something apart that you see as if your clients are going public with how they're feeling with other people, that it helps them?
Well, I think even just coming into my office and acknowledging that they have a problem, saying it out loud, and like we said, you have to be willing to recognize that there is a problem here and that it is affecting your life. And it's interesting that all of those symptoms that you stated, they're spot on. There's just like textbook anxiety, right? Yeah, I mean, textbook. It's interesting because most kids that come in and the parents will say, well, he just, in fact, I think one of them is in my book, that she used to vomit before class. She wouldn't go to school. She was vomiting all the time. She'd spend all of her time in the bathroom. She was sick all the time. And it's like, well, she's sick because she's so nervous and anxious about going to school that this is what it looks like. So I think, and I think also shedding light onto parents and giving them something they can do. Like, okay, here's the tools that you can use with your child. They feel so much better. Okay, this is how I help them. It's not keeping them home from school. It's not, enabling their anxiety because it's making it worse. But if you can have something that works for you, like you found it, and I think talking about it is huge. First of all, you have to recognize it's a problem, right? Yeah. And then what works for you. And that's what when my clients come in, we try like 2 or 3 different things. They practice it. They come back in, we talk about it. I say, what was most helpful for you? I like to ask that question, so what do you think was most helpful? And it's interesting because I've had pilots, I've had doctors, I've had all these different people. And 9 times out of 10, they say the signal plan. And it's so simple. It's such a simple plan. And what I do is I make keychains, so it's a visual, and they can carry the keychain with them. And then we also make the visuals where you could put it up around the house or by your computer, because it's like your meditation. It gets you to stop, make a choice, take a deep breath, and you're practicing throughout the day, not only when you're anxious, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I can do it in a meeting, right? You get, I think, good enough at it. I could be in an anxious situation. And here's the thing about anxiousness or anxiety is there's no reason behind it either. I could be doing something really, like one time I was at March Madness, the basketball tournament, right? With 2 friends and my wife. So another couple, my wife. And I had this like overwhelming feel of anxiety doing something I love to do. I'm with my friends and my wife watching college basketball live, and I'm having an anxiety attack, right? And it's like, so I think that was the other thing I'd come to grips with is there's no reason for it. Sometimes it just happens and you can't control it, and it doesn't mean you're in a bad situation. And I had to turn it into an ally and be like, all right, I see what you're doing here, right? And talk trash to it and understand that it's also helped me become successful in life. But I also had to embrace it. And I always tried to hide it. Like, that's just the way I am. That's just it, you know? And my wife's like, one time, that's just, gosh, I don't know how many years ago. She's like, it doesn't have to be like that though. And it like clicked to me. I'm like, yeah, I guess it doesn't have to, you know? And so I don't know, but that was just the weird thing is it just happens at random times.
So it's that irrational thoughts, right? It's those, but you know what's great is that you use positive self-talk to get you out of it. So you actually use the cognitive behavioral therapy modality by stopping, like it was going on, and you're like, wait a second, this is ridiculous. I'm going to stop this. This is not, you know, and so you actually use the signal plan in a way, but on your own, you know, whatever works for you, you stopped it. You made a choice to use positive self-talk to replace the negative thoughts in your head.
Yeah.
That's so
a good
cool.
Point. So tomorrow I'm going to get on an airplane about 7:30 in the morning, and I didn't fly for 8 years. Had a really bad flight and made a deal with the man upstairs, right? If you get me and my family through this, I'll never fly again. And it took me 8 years to realize that God has other things to worry about, not my flight time, right? And so, but it was really bad. Again, anxiousness. And then a person in my firm gave me this travel rosary, and I got on the plane, and I was scared to death, and the door shut. You can feel that cabin pressure change, and everything went away. But again, it's self-talk through that, right? And so now here I am 2 years into it, back to flying. I'm getting on a flight tomorrow, and I'm excited. I feel great. Whereas before, I don't even think I could have done this podcast right today.
Wow, that is so amazing. That's great. You're like proof positive that this works. It really does work. And for you to do it on your own is incredible. I kind of, you know, it's interesting because kind of like you myself, I've embraced the ADHD that I have. And I was like, oh my gosh, I was just, I don't know, I was kind of embarrassed of it, if you will. But now I think I wouldn't be where I am today if I didn't have it. So I have to look at it that way, that it's gotten me where I am. And so I will embrace it. I am hopefully more aware of, when I do trail off, and I'll tell people a lot of the podcasts or wherever I'm at, hey, if I go off track, please just rein me in, because that's who I am.
That's what I do. That's funny. So tell us about the book. You're Not Crazy, Living with Anxiety, Obsessions, and Fetishes. Where can people find that book, and what do you hope they get from it?
Well, I wrote the book so that somebody who just needs some type of structure or, some type of a game plan and doesn't want to go to a therapist could pick it up and utilize the tools that are in it, really, from start to finish. It teaches you how to write your own motivational story. Like I said, all the visuals are in there. You could just make copies of them. The data sheets are in there. You could just put together your own plan on your own if you wanted to. Or if you just wanted to learn about some of the different clients that I've had and some of their cases and what the outcome of that was. It's very interesting, I think. You can find that on my website, lauriesingerbehavioral.com, or there's also you'renotcrazybook.com. Okay.
We will put that all in the show notes. And one final question I have for you. Somebody asked me this. I've actually been asked a couple of times recently, and I've really connected with it. But what would you tell yourself now at 64 that you wish over the last 10, 15, 20 years, whatever it may be, you wish you would have known then what you know now?
I don't know what I would want to know now. I think I would want to know more about the ADHD that I have, honestly, and that it took me so long. I didn't know until I was 50 that I had ADHD all that whole time, like why I was such a poor student. And I just thought I wasn't smart, honestly. And then I was in a meeting and I was running the meeting, Brett. Okay. And there's like 20 people and I'm talking in the meeting, and all of a sudden in the middle of the meeting, I said, look at the size of that squirrel. I was looking out the window, and they all looked at me like, Yeah, they're looking at me like, "What in the world is she talking about?" And then when the meeting was over, one of the psychologists said, "Hey, Laurie, do you ever think about going on medication?" and I
Like
said,
textbook.
"Well, why would?" Yeah. And I said, "Well, why would I do that?" And he said, "Well, for your ADHD." And I said, "What?" So here I am. I get out the DSM-5, and I'm looking at it, and I thought, "Oh my gosh, this is me." They could have a picture of me in the DSM.
Wow.
So I wish they would have helped kids more at my age, because nowadays it's more recognizable. Teachers
Yeah.
are talking about it. They're saying, "Hey, let's have a parent conference. I think little Johnny, he probably should get diagnosed. We can, sit him away from distractions. We can do this for him, that for them." There was nothing like that when I was a kid. So
How much
we
do you
just
think
help
is our
other
food
people.
intake too of what we're doing? It seems like it's more and more prevalent with children today.
What is that?
Do you think it has anything to do with our food and just like the stuff in the environment? Like, do you believe that at all? You're hearing more and more of that stuff out there, that the food intake that could make things worse for kids.
Maybe, but I look back at the kids I was sent to the principal's office all the time, so I think, there was and it wasn't because I was bad. I was just so distracted. I couldn't stay on task. I was talking all the time in class.
Yeah.
And I think that kids back then were always sent to the principal's office. Then they gravitated toward the wrong crowd. They get involved with drugs or alcohol. And it's still happening today, but not as much. Now there's more resources for the kids out there where they're recognizing that. I mean, it could be food. I know a lot of parents put their kids on gluten-free diets, or, whatever works for you. I think, for me, I think it's balance. I think there's a balance, because if you become so restricted on what you eat, then you end up with a kid with an eating disorder when they're in their teens. So you have to really, there's a fine line there that you have to pay attention. A parent, what is your behavior and what are you passing along to your children?
I love it. Where do our listeners find more of Laurie Singer?
More of me?
Yes.
You would just go to.
Are you an Instagram person? Or are you LinkedIn?
I am. Yes. I'm on Instagram. Laurie Singer Behavioral Services on Instagram, Facebook. Yes.
Let's see here. Let's play. We're gonna play one more game. I love doing this. So this is Laurie Singer Behavioral. You said
Should be Laurie Singer Behavioral Services.
And of course, my internet's not working right now. So I was going to ask you one of your favorite posts on Instagram, have you pick a random number and do that, but it's not working right now. So I'm not going to do that. But anything that you think about when you think of social media, what comes to mind for you?
I like to put pictures of happy things. I don't. What comes to mind now is there's too much political stuff on these different, and I don't like it. So I've joined this new page, which it's just puppies. It's Boston Terriers, pugs, everything, because I think that's what makes me smile, and I just have to get away from everything else that's happening right now.
Could not agree more. Get rid of the noise, get rid of the chaos.
Yes.
Just focus on the stuff that matters. It's your positive talk. Good stuff. And what's what you said earlier, right? You become what you eat, or something like that. And you are what you eat. And it's like, well, we are how we respond, and how we act is what we also consume, right?
That's right.
I mean, got to put the phone down sometimes and stop watching all that crap. So, well, hey, it's been awesome having you, and I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Brett.
And congratulations on what you've accomplished, and the stuff that you continue to do, and climbing mountains and running races and biking a century ride in October like it's nothing. You're like, oh yeah, I just booked a century ride. So that's amazing. So hats off to you. I'm sure we'll connect in the future.
Well, I've really had a good time on your show, and I want to say congratulations to you for overcoming what you have, and to have a safe flight tomorrow. You're going to have fun.
I love it. Thank you so much.
All right, take care.